Hi guys, thank you once again for coming online. Last week we covered securities, right? We did duration, modified duration, convexity. Right? Then we moved on to asset accounting, where we did cover the IFRS 9. Right? So the next 2 weeks, meaning 7th March and 14th March, you might not have classes, right? You might not. Just check with the institute. So we'll move on to the new area today, which is on value at risk, based on value at risk. Now, just a basic introduction, which you don't need to memorize. You will not get this in an MCQ question. This is being presented only for your reading pleasure. In the 1990s, Dennis Weatherton, former chairman of JP Morgan, felt that a single measure of the overall risk should be calculated. He demanded that a one-page report be delivered to him after the closure of business each day, summarizing the company's global exposure and providing an estimate of potential level losses over the next 24 hours. Right. So for one day, he wanted to know how much he can lose. The result was JP Morgan's famous 4:15 report, so called because it was delivered to Weatherton at 4:15 p.m. each day, and the beginning of an amazingly successful risk management tool known as value at risk. Right. So what you should know is this is a tool which measures market risk. Right. Market risk. What are the other types of risks? There are various types of risks. Like what? Types of risks? Well, you have financial, non-financial, financial, you can have market risk. Market risk can be exchange rate, interest rate, commodity prices. Yes, Dinesh, quite right. Political, environmental, credit risk, equity price risk, legal risk, political risk. You can have things like political instability. Now, when you make investment decisions, you would prefer to invest in countries which have political stability, countries like US. Given a choice between investing in US and Afghanistan, you'll obviously prefer to invest in the US because of stability. Then environmental risk. Interesting case study. There was it was Shell, right? Shell leaked oil in the Atlantic Ocean, right? And it was called Deepwater Horizon. So it's another movie which you should watch. There is a movie by the same also, by the same name, Deepwater Horizon. Watch this. It's about Shell's oil spill in the Atlantic Ocean. It cost them some $53 billion in damages. Right, $53 billion, more than half the size of our economy. Environmental damage can be massive. Legal risks. And if you missell your products, if you missell your products, you can be exposed to legal risk. Right? Your customers can come back to you. They can say that they were never, well, you all never told them about the downside of certain products. Right? Legal risk. Then your reputation. Reputation risk. Classic example is there were so many finance companies that went under last 1 or 2 years, last few years, in fact. If they were to come and open up once again, it will be very difficult for them to get business. Why? Because of reputation. Their reputation has gone for 6. What are the other types of risks? Now, what about technology? Technological risk. Classic example I can think of is look at Nokia. Or 10 years ago, perhaps all of us were using Nokia phones. But today, how many of us are using Nokia? Very few. Recent technology. The codec, what happened to codec? Sometime back, every town, we used to see the codec board, right? today. We hardly see it. There's no Kodak anywhere. That's technology. Then you have operational risks. Risk of fraud. You have business risk. Getting into the wrong business. Any other risks? Yeah. Then, of course, technology, you have the risk of viruses, hackers. And you all know what happened to the Bangladesh Central Bank. No? They had about $28 billion of reserves maintained in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Right? And some hackers had gone into their system, into the system of this New York bank, the Reserve Bank of New York, and sent out some Swift messages to transfer the Bangladesh Central Bank money reserves out. And part of the money came to Sri Lanka also. A certain portion, I think, went to Indonesia, some casinos. And the money that came to Sri Lanka, some 20 million or 80 million odd, was detected. Right? Because they made a small mistake. It had come to an account called Charlika Foundation, whereas Foundation, right? And it was spelled as Foundation. O was missing. A small mistake which was detected by the teller, right, of the bank that it came to. It had come to Pan Asia Bank. So this teller, a young guy, had detected, or the lady had detected the spelling mistake, which is why it's very important that you learn your spelling. Grade 2, you are taught your spelling. Very important to learn. Okay, so it was detected, so that amount was saved. Part of it was lost in Indonesia, but fortunately, they escaped a small amount. That is, they would have lost quite big. Yeah, so there are so many risks. Now, out of these risks, value at risk addresses only market risk. Only market risk. It measures market risk only. Right? Now, credit risk can be measured using factors like credit loss given defaults, expected loss, and all that. So value at risk is used to measure market risk. the definition of value at risk. It is an attempt to provide a single number, very important, a single number. So the entire risk is summarized using a single number, summarizing the total risk in a portfolio of financial assets. It has become widely used by corporate treasurers and fund managers as well as by financial institutions. Okay. So this has become the industry standard. Value at risk states at some probability, often 1% or 5%, the expected loss during a specified time period. Okay, so let's see what value at risk means. Have you all seen this curve? What is it called? It's called the bell curve. Or the normal distribution. And this center point is called the mean or the average. Right. And we are plotting, remember, it's like something like this. Let's say we are taking 100 days of profits. Right? For company. 100 days, maybe 100 quarters of profits of a company. So 100 whatever, right? And on a daily basis, we track their returns. The returns are tracked on a daily basis. So maybe if you plot the return on a daily basis, at first day, second, third, likewise, for a period of 100 days. First day, they might give 1% return. Second day, they might give 5% return. Third day might be a loss of 10%. Fourth day might be a loss of 3%. And the ninth day might be a loss of 5%. And the 100th day might be a profit of 10%. Okay, so on different days they produce different results. So what you do is you get the average of all of these. Let's say the average is 5%. Okay, so this average or the mean in this case will be 5%. Right? And then you go to the data points and you see the average is 5%. Because you can go downward. It is 4%, 3%, 2, 1, 0, -1. Right? This will be increasing profits 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, likewise. Sometimes you might see that 1% was achieved on 10 days. Right? So these are the frequencies. Then 2%, maybe 15 days. Negative 10%, 2 days. 0%, 6 days, or whatever. Right? So you will have a range of returns, maybe ranging from lowest is -10%, -9%, likewise, 0%, 1%. And highest return of 10%. 10% minus was achieved on 2 days, 9% minus achieved 5 days, 1% minus achieved 15 days, 0% achieved 20 days. Likewise, maybe 10% achieved on 1 day. So if you add up all the number of days, you get a total of 100. 100 days you're tracking 100 days. Right? So these are the frequencies. Which you are plotting on this diagram. Now -10%. Achieve once. -9%, 5 times. So likewise, you plot this diagram. Then the average of 5% may be achieved on 50 days. So this average, you plot 50 here. Okay. So you construct a curve which is called the bell curve, and you normalize it. Construct and normalize a curve which is called the bell curve. Right? This is a normal distribution. Okay. That's the basic concept. I'm not going to explain in detail. Now, if I can ask you a question, if the average is a return of 5%, below average means which side? The left side or the right side? Below average returns you get on the left side or the right side? Below average returns will come on the left side or the right side? Because average is 5%. Below average means less than 5. Will come on the left side. Okay, so this side below average. and the right is above average. Yeah. Now each of these frequencies give the number of occurrences. Right? So at 5% return, you have 50 occurrences. If you take the percentage, total number of days is 100, or let's say 1000 or whatever. Right? So if you take the total number of days, shall we say this is 1000 days. And we say this is 1000 days, and so the total number of days comes to 1000. 1000 days, you are plotting using this curve, is meant to show 1000 data points. Right? So the entire curve under this as a percentage becomes 100%. Okay, so this entire area, the entire area under the curve is 100%. And the average splits it in half. Okay, so to the right you have 50%, left you have 50%. 50% is below average, 50% above average. Right. Okay, so this is the basic diagram. Now, can you all tell me your risk is to which side, the left or the right? Where is your risk? On the left side or the right side? Where is your risk? On the left or the right? Because achieving above average is good or bad? If you achieve above average, it is achieving above average is good, isn't it? So there is no risk above the right side. Your risk comes only on the left side. Okay? So when you talk about risk, you only have to look at the left side, below average. Okay, so As you move further towards the left, the risk will increase. Right. So we have 50% on the right, 50% on the left. And when we talk about value at risk, the most important thing is it should have two main things. One is the time period. The other one is the confidence level. Value at risk doesn't make sense without time and confidence level. Right? So for it to make any sense, you have to have time as well as confidence. Now, if you just say a value at risk is 5%, it doesn't make sense. You have to say the value at risk over the next 1 year at a 95% confidence level is 5%. Something like that. Okay, now let's say this is a 1 year time horizon or a 5 year time horizon or whatever time horizon, right? Main thing is it has to be a time horizon, some particular time. And you're talking about 95% confidence level. 95% confidence level. So if it's 95% confidence level, you're talking about value at risk is the maximum possible loss over a given time period and confidence level. Maximum possible loss over a given time period and confidence level. So what you do is, this entire thing is 100% to the right, there is no loss. Right? That's it. You need to start from the right and come down 95%. You get there, which means this is 50% and another 45% on the left side. Okay, so 55%, 50% here, 45% here gives you 95% confidence. That your maximum possible loss will be X. Which means there is a 5% probability that your loss will be more than X, right? Because 95% of the time you're X or below. But 5% of the time you're more than X. Right? That is what it means. So 95% of the time below X, but 5% above X. So this 5% is called significance level. (95% is the confidence, 5% is significance. Then if you add confidence plus significance, you should get 100%, which is the total area under this curve. Right, so value at risk is an attempt to provide a single number, which is X in our example, summarizing the total risk in a portfolio of financial assets. It has become widely used by corporate treasurers and fund managers as well as by financial institutions. Value at risk states that at some probability, often 5% or 1%, the expected loss during a specified time period. The variable V is the value at risk of the portfolio. It is a function of two parameters, the time horizon and the confidence level. So remember, for value at risk to make sense, you need to have the time as well as the confidence level. Let's go back to the bell curve. This is 95%. Which direction do you think you will move if you go to 99% confidence level? Will you go to the left or to the right? For 99% confidence, you should move to the left or the right. For you to be 99% confident, should you move to the left or to the right? For you to be 99% confident, right, this is 50%, so you have to move 49% to the left. Okay, so up to here is 45, another 4%. Further to the left, this will be 99% confident. If you are 99% confident, that means the significance level will be, how much will the significance level be if you're 99% confident? If you're 99% confident, the significance level will be 1%. But remember, confidence plus significance is 100. So this is 99. So significance will be 1%. Example, $100 million portfolio has a 1.37% value at risk at 5% probability over 1 week, right? So it's the portfolio size is 100 million. 1.37% of it is at risk at the probability of at the 5% probability over 1 week. Okay, so you have given the time period, and it says 5% probability. That means what is mentioned here is the significance. At 5% significance over 1 week, you can lose 1.37% of your portfolio. Calculate what could be lost and explain what the loss means. Right. So what it means is, over a period of 1 week, the portfolio could lose 1.37% of 100 million, which is $1.37 million. Right. And you're 95% confident that your maximum possible loss over the next 1 week will be $1.37 million. Okay, that's how you define it. So the definition is standard. What it means is, value at risk is the maximum possible loss over the next 1 week at 95% confidence is $1.37 million. It also means there is a 5% chance that you can lose more than $1.37 million over the next 1 week. That is what it means, finally. Clear? Issues with value at risk. The value at risk time period should relate to the nature of the situation. A traditional stock and bond portfolio would likely focus on a longer monthly or quarterly value at risk, while a highly leveraged derivative portfolio might focus on shorter daily value at risk. Right, so there is no one size fits all. It depends on what type of market you're analyzing. If the market is more volatile, you have to take a shorter value at risk. Time horizon should be much shorter. You can't take long time periods. The percentage selected will affect value at risk. 1% value at risk would be expected to show greater risk than 5% value at risk, right? So as we mentioned in this bell curve, as you move to the left, your risk will increase. The left tail should be examined. Left tail refers to a traditional probability distribution graph of returns, like what we discussed. The left tail displays the low or negative returns, which is what value at risk measures at some probability. Right. So this is how it is shown. Calculating value at risk. So there are 3 ways of calculating value at risk: analytical, historical, and Monte Carlo. So let's cover analytical first. The analytical method, or variance covariance method, is based on the normal distribution and the concept of one-tailed confidence interval. Right. So this is how we calculated value at risk. It's the mean R minus sigma Z into V. Right. So R is the expected return on the portfolio, or the average return. V is the value of the portfolio. Z is your Z score. Z value corresponding with the desired level of significance. Sigma is the standard deviation of returns. Right, so sigma for the standard deviation means how far away you are from the average. How far away are you from the average? It's measured by sigma. The further you are, the higher the risk. Okay, so let's try this example. Well, not yet, sorry. The analytical value at risk method. Now, these values you need to remember. 5% value at risk is 1.65 standard deviations below the mean. So at 5%, your Z score becomes 1.65. Then at 1%, your Z score is 2.33. These Z scores you need to remember, these two in particular. 5% Z score is 1.65, 1% Z score is 2.33. Those two figures you need to remember. Value at risk for periods less than a year are computed with return and standard deviations expressed for the desired period of time. So if it's less than 1 year, you have to prorate it based on the time period. For monthly value at risk, you need to divide the annual return by 12 and standard deviation by the square root of 12. Then compute monthly value at risk. For weekly value at risk, divide annual return by 52 and the standard deviation by square root of 52. For a very short period, 1 day, value at risk can be approximated by ignoring the return component. Right, so let's see what it means. Let's try this example. says analytical value at risk. The expected annual return for a $100 million portfolio is 6%. And the historical standard deviation is 12%. You have to calculate value at risk at 5% significance. So expected annual return is your average return. R is 6%. Historical standard deviation of sigma is 12%. You have to calculate value at risk at 5% significance. Okay. At 5% significance, your Z score will be, remember what we did earlier, 1.65. No? Right, at 1% it becomes 2.33. The portfolio value is 100 million. So your value at risk your value at risk is a loss of 13.8 million. Okay. But now that you've got an answer, how do you interpret this? How can you interpret your answer? How would you interpret this answer? And so analyzing the annual return, 5% significance. If you have to interpret this answer, you have to say that your 5% significance, that means your confidence level is 95%. So you are 95% confident that over the next 1 year period, your maximum loss is going to be $13.8 million. And over the next 1 year, you are 95% confident that the maximum loss is going to be $13.8 million. Which means there is a 5% probability that you might end up losing more than $13.8 million. Right? So 95% of the time you will be within, but 5% of the time you can exit. Okay. So this is annual. Let's now move on to the next area. Which is to calculate weekly value at risk. So weekly will be the annual values divided by the number of weeks, 52. Sigma is 12% divided by the root of 52. Z remains at 1.65. Portfolio value is $100 billion. Your value at risk. you get 2.635 million negative. Okay. So this was monthly, 6%. The return would have been 6% divided by 12. Standard deviation 12% divided by square root of 12. Now what happens when it's daily? Your return would be 6% divided by 365. Standard deviation is 12% divided by the root of 365. Z score remains at 1.65. Right. Now this is, you will move this close to 0, so you can forget about it. And the value address becomes after a loss of about $1.04 million. Okay, so that's analytical value at risk. Advantages of analytical method: it's easy to calculate, easy to understood, and easy to interpret. Because you get a single number. It allows modeling for the correlation of risks. Right? So you can do scenario analysis. Can be applied to shorter or longer time periods as relevant. You can change the time period at will. Disadvantages: it assumes a normal distribution of return, the bell curve, which may not be the case. Disadvantages of analytical VAR: assumes the normal rate of return. So therefore, there can be skewed returns, right? Or there can be many assets that exhibit leptokurtosis or fat tails. Remember the tails of the distribution? Tails can be fat. If that is the case, your result will be wrong. When a distribution has fat tails, value at risk will tend to underestimate the loss and its associated probability, as extreme returns occur more frequently than assumed by the normal distribution. The difficulty of estimating standard deviation in very large portfolios, right? If your portfolio is massive, then it's almost impossible. The second method of calculating value at risk is using the historical value at risk. The historical method for estimating VAR is sometimes referred to as the historical simulation method. One way to calculate 5% daily VAR is using the historical method is to accumulate a number of past daily returns, rank the returns from highest to lowest, and identify the lowest 5% of returns. The highest of these lowest 5% returns is the one-day VAR, right? So remember, you need to rank the returns from the highest to the lowest, right? So, or the lowest to the highest, and then pick the worst that you're looking for. So let's try this example. You have accumulated 100 daily returns for your $100 million portfolio. After ranking the returns from highest to lowest, you identify the lowest 5 returns. And you're asked to calculate daily value at risk at 5% significance using the historical method. Right, so let's give it a try. And you're asked to calculate daily value at risk at 5% significance using the historical method. So 100 daily returns, 5% significance is the first return. Right. So all other returns are better than these. Now if you look at these worst returns, this is the worst, second worst, third worst, fourth, and this is the fifth worst. Right, so there you go. That is your 5% significance VAR. If you want the absolute value into 100 million. Sorry, it's not percentage. Advantages of the historical method. It's very easy to calculate and understand, and it does not assume a return distribution, right? So you don't have to assume there is a normal distribution. It can be applied to different time periods according to the industry custom. So you can customize it quite significantly. The primary disadvantage of historical method is the assumption that the pattern of historical returns will repeat in the future. That it is indicative of future returns. And the third method is called Monte Carlo method. Right now, the Monte Carlo method is very similar to historical returns. The Monte Carlo method uses computer software to generate hundreds of thousands of possible outcomes from the distributions of inputs specified by the user. The user might specify normal distributions from some methods, skewed for others, lepokurtosis for others, and complex shifting correlations over time. The runs of possible outcomes can be ranked from highest to lowest, right? Just like historical outcomes, to determine the results at any given probability. So let's try this example on the Monte Carlo. Very similar to historical. Remember to rank the returns from best to worst or worst to best. And so it's identical to historical. The Monte Carlo method has generated 100 runs of possible output over 1 week periods. The average return and standard deviation are 5.7 and 2.1% respectively. The worst 6 outcomes are plus 0.5%, 1.5, 1.6, 0.3, 0.7, 0.5. Portfolio is known to include extensive option positions. Right? So remember, if your portfolio has option positions, you can use Monte Carlo. That's an advantage, great asset advantage. Calculate 1 week value at risk at 5% significance for a beginning portfolio value of 100 million pounds. By the way, I forgot to mention that historical value at risk method that we did earlier, 5% significance, it means 100 daily returns, right? So it's for the next 100 days, you're 95% confident that the maximum loss would be 0.0019%. Going back to the Monte Carlo example, you have 6 worst outcomes, which you need to rank from either best to worst or worst to best. Right? So let's rank them from best to worst. Best would be 1.6. Yeah, it's positive, right? So it's then we have 1.5. So 100 runs of possible output over 1 week period. You have been given standard deviation and the average. Now, don't get confused, although it's been mentioned. It might be to distract you so that you will use analytical variance covariance for analytical value at risk. But if it's mentioned that there are options, it doesn't apply. You can't use analytical if there are options. So you have to calculate 1 week value at risk, 5% significance. So there are 100 runs, 5% is the fifth worst. You need to find the fifth worst. This is the worst, second worst, third worst, fourth worst, and here you get the fifth worst. That's 1.5% of the portfolio values, which is 100 million pounds. $1.5 million. Now, how do you interpret this? You're 95% confident that over the next 1 week, your maximum loss will be 1.5 million pounds. The primary advantage of Monte Carlo method is also its primary disadvantage. It can incorporate any assumptions regarding return patterns, correlation, and other factors the analyst believes are relevant. That leads to the downside. The output is only as good as the input assumptions, right? So you get garbage in, garbage out. This complexity can lead to a false sense of overconfidence in the output amongst the less informed. It is data and compute intensive, which can make it costly to use in complex situations, where it may also be the only reasonable method to use. Right? So it is extensively data and compute intensive. Right? So you have to put a lot of effort, lots of software cost and all that will go into it. Advantages of value at risk. It becomes the industry standard for risk measurement and is required by many regulators. So regulators insist on value at risk. It aggregates all risk into one single, easy to understand number. It can be used in capital allocation. Limitations. Some methods are difficult and expensive. The different computation methods can generate different estimates of value at risk. Right? So if you do it in the 3 ways, you might get 3 different results. You can generate a false sense of security. It is only as good as the inputs and estimation process. Even when done correctly, it is probabilistic. Things can be worse. It is one-sided, focusing on the left tail in the return distribution and ignores the upside potential. So you don't know what is going on the profit side. You only focus on the losses. And even if you do this, it doesn't mean you have a perfect solution. Things can be much worse. Which method to use, you don't know. Right? So stress testing. It's often employed as a complement to value at risk. It may reveal outcomes not reflected in typical value at risk calculations. For example, the manager might use historical standard deviation in estimating value at risk, and if nothing unusual occurred during the measurement period, the estimated value at risk will reflect only normal circumstances. So you are doing something beyond value at risk. You are doing a stress test. Stress testing is just an extreme scenario. Scenario analysis. Scenario analysis is used to measure the effect on the portfolio of simulations, movements in one or several factors. In scenario analysis, the user defines the events such as interest rate movements, changes in volatility, changes in asset liquidity, changes in currency exchange rates, and compares the value of the portfolio before and after the specified events. Potential weakness in any scenario analysis includes the inability to accurately measure byproducts of major factor movements. Right? The impact of a major movement in one factor has on other factors. Include the effects of simultaneous movements in risk factors. You are only analyzing one thing at a time. In forms of scenario analysis, stylized scenarios. There are 3 forms of scenario analysis. First one is stylized. The analyst changes one or more risk factor to measure the effect of the portfolio. Rather than having the manager select risk factors, some stylized scenarios are more like industry standards. Right? So you don't have to pick and choose. You can use what is available in the industry. Stylized scenarios help managers to avoid the oh no syndrome. As in, oh no, why didn't we think of that? Right? So everyone will be using this. Therefore, nothing will be omitted. Then actual extreme events. The analyst measures the impact of major past events, such as market crash of 1987 or 1990 technology bubble on the portfolio value. And hypothetical events are extreme events that might occur, but have not previously occurred. Right? So, stylized scenarios, actual extreme events, and hypothetical events. Hypothetical events are extreme events that might occur but have not previously occurred. These tests are subject to same weaknesses as the scenario analysis and are subject to incorrect assumptions, exposed to incorrect assumptions, correlations, and user biases. In stress testing models, right, there are 3 models. remember there are three forms of scenario analysis, right? And also three forms of stress testing models. Stress testing and stressing models are just an extension of scenario analysis. Focusing on adverse outcomes, stress testing can be done as factor push analysis. Factor push, right, is a simple stress test where the analyst pushes factors to the most disadvantageous combination of possible circumstances and measures the resulting impact on the portfolio. So all the factors you push to the most disadvantageous positions and measure the result on the impact on the portfolio. Then maximum loss of optimization uses more sophisticated mathematical and computer modeling to find this worst combination of factors, right? So factor push, where you push everything to worst possible cases, but the overall impact on you might be still positive. Right now, look at, for example, COVID-19. We thought it would be a disaster, but for some companies, it has been a blessing, right? Because they are into this business. Maybe they are into gloves manufacturing, activated carbon, or transportation, medicine, and all that. So those companies gained. Maximum loss optimization is where you take individual factors and change them so that the loss is maximized. Worst case scenario is the worst case the analyst thinks is likely to occur. Right? That's the third way of doing it. Worst case scenario. It's a bit judgmental, but the analyst is given the opportunity to decide on what is likely to occur. Right. So remember, factor push, maximum loss optimization, and worst case scenario are the stressing models. Scenario analysis, you have stylized actual and hypothetical events. All right. So we come to the questions. Let's try these questions. By the way, next week and the week after, you may not have classes. I'm still not 100% sure, but most probably you might not have. If that is the case, we will meet again on the 21st of March. Right. So let's continue with the questions. Check with the institute whether you have classes next week or not. Question number 1. Consider a portfolio that has the following characteristics. Expected return of 12%, $1 million portfolio. Standard deviation is 6%. What is value at risk at 99% probability? Right, so it's we have been given expected return, portfolio value, and standard deviation. It doesn't say that it includes options, which means you can use analytical value at risk. Return is 12%. Portfolio value is 1 million. Standard deviation 6%. Sigma at 99%. Your Z score is 2.33. Right, so value at risk comes to 19,800 negative. Question number 2. Gregory Chambers is interested in estimating the daily value at risk with 99% probability of the bank's fixed income portfolio. Currently valued at $30 million. The portfolio has the following returns. of the past 20 days, rank from high to low. What will be the value at risk estimate using historical method, right? So very simple. So 99% probability, 1% significance. That means you need to find the second worst. It's 1.87. $561,000. Number 3. John Dumas is in charge of $100 million equity portfolio. He expects a return of 10% with a standard deviation of 8%. What will be the minimum value of the portfolio at 95% probability? You have been given its scores, right? So it's very clearly, once again, analytical value at risk. Is that at 1.95% is 1.65? Value of portfolio is 100 million. Right. So the maximum you will lose is $3.2 million. The portfolio value is 100 million. It's 100 million minus 3.2 million comes to $96.8 million. Minimum value of a portfolio is when the maximum loss happens. Maximum loss is 3.2. So the minimum value of the portfolio is $96.8 million. Question number 4. If the one-day value at risk of a portfolio is $50,000 at 95% probability, this means that we should expect that. What is your answer? One-day value at risk, $50,000 at 95% probability. Right, so that means 95% of the time you will lose $50,000 over the next one day, but 5% of the time you will lose more than $50,000. Right, so it says in one day out of 20 days is 5%. The portfolio will decline by $50,000 or more, right? So 19 days, that means 95% of the time it will be less than 50,000. 19 days out of 20, it will be less than $50,000. But one day out of 20, it will be more than $50,000. So answer is B. One day out of 20 days, the portfolio will decline by $50,000 or more. Question number 5. Portfolio manager determines that his portfolio has an expected return of $20,000 and standard deviation 45. Given a 95% confidence level, what is the portfolio value at risk? So it's expected return, standard deviation. It looks like analytical value at risk. To remove the brackets, you get R times E minus sigma Z into V, right? So R times V is your expected return. Isn't it? If the expected return is 5% and the portfolio value is 100 million, your expected return would be 5% into 100 million, which is 5 million. So likewise, it's given here. Expected return is $20,000. Standard deviation. Standard deviation is given in absolute terms, 45,000. %95 confidence is into 1.65. So the portfolio value at risk is 54,250. And finally, which of the following methods for calculating value at risk do asset managers most commonly use? The answer is, although it is expensive, Monte Carlo simulation. Right, folks. So that is about it for today. I will see you most probably on the 21st. But having said that, just check with the institute. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, so thank you very much. I will see you on the 21st.